Lecture 2, Chapter 5 of our textbook, Inventory Control with Uncertain Demand, and this is the last part of Section 1. In the base model that we had in previous part, we assume that there is no initial inventory at the beginning of each period. So now let's assume that we do have some inventory in our stock. So we do have an initial inventory at the beginning of the period, and let's show this by U, and here we assume that U is a positive number. So for the application, anytime that the shelf life of the product exceeds one period, then we may have initial inventory at the beginning of each period. Okay, so here our optimal order policy will be this. If U, the initial inventory is, so yeah, I mean, we ignore the U at first, and we will obtain the Q star by assuming that there is no initial inventory. Now we have the Q star. If U is less than Q star, then we will order Q star minus U in order to have a Q star in total at the beginning of the period. Otherwise, do not order. I mean, if U, the initial inventory is greater than the Q star, so we will order nothing, right? So this is called actually order up to or base stock policy here. So yeah, here we assume that the maximum level of inventory at the beginning of the period should be Q star, right? So we'll order up to Q star. If the initial inventory is less than that, we will order Q star minus U. Other than that, there will be no order. So this is called also base stock policy. Now let's assume the multiple planning periods. In the basic news vendor model, we assume that we have just one period. It was based on single period, right? Now let's see what happens if we have multiple planning periods. So here we assume that the ending inventory, if we have excess inventory at the end of each period, then it will become the initial inventory in the beginning of the next period. Okay, so in this case, the interpretation of the CO and CU will be changed. I mean, in the base model, we assume that we have just one period. So if we have the overage case, I mean, we have excess inventory at the end of the period, so we have to sell them as scrap, right? We can't use them as initial inventory for the next period. So, but here, since we can use the excess inventory at the end of the period for as initial inventory for the next period. So the interpretation of the CO and CU will be different here. Okay. So here for the overage case, I mean, if we have excess inventory, then we are not going to sell them as scrap. So we just need to keep them or hold them for the next period. So here we will have somehow the holding cost, like the EOQ, right? So the CO here will be the inventory holding cost at the end of the period. But for the underage case, we will consider two cases here. The first one is back ordered, and the second one is lost sales. In the back ordered, we assume that if we have excess demand, I mean, if we are in stock out situation, but we do have excess demand, then those customers will wait for the next period in order to have the goods in our stock and then satisfy their demand. So here we don't have lost sales. We just will satisfy those demands with a delay, right? So we call this as back ordered case. But in lost sales, the customers won't wait for the next period, so we will lose their demand. So it's called lost sales. So here for the back order, for the CU will have the loss of goodwill cost. Yeah, customers become somehow unsatisfied, right? I mean, they won't be happy if they have to wait a while to have the goods. So for this situation, we will consider a loss of goodwill cost for the underage cost, and the CO will be the holding cost. But if we have the lost sales situation, beside having the loss of goodwill cost, we will have the lost profit as well. Okay, for the underage cost, but for the overage, it will be just the holding cost. Okay. Let's have an example here. We assume that that news vendor, news boy, let's say, buys the services for $1.15 and sells for $2.75. So the services is different than newspaper, right? We can keep them, we can hold them for the next periods, right? So because of that, we can apply the multiple planning period here, okay? And the loss of goodwill cost here is assumed to be 50 cents. And here we assume that we have the back ordered situation, so we don't have the lost sale here. And we assume normal distribution for demand with mu and sigma as 18 and 6. And we assume annual interest rate as 20% for calculating the inventory holding cost. Okay. So here at first we need to calculate the CO, the overage cost first. So the holding cost will be like the EOQ model here, I interest rate times C. So it will be 1.15 times 0.20. But here, since our period is monthly, so you want to obtain the optimal quantity to order per month, so we need to convert all the costs for monthly basis. So here we need to divide this by 12 in order to be in monthly basis. So it will be the CO, or overage cost here, and the CU is just the loss of goodwill cost, which is 50 cents, 0.5. Okay, so the critical ratio here will be CU over CU plus CO. It becomes this number, right? Okay, so here, let's say the alpha is 0.9630, the critical ratio, and the Z alpha will be 1.79, okay, from the standard normal distribution table. Okay, now as you remember, the Q star here will be, since it's normal, mu plus Z alpha times sigma, right? So by having this formula here, we can obtain the Q here. Okay, so it's 28.74, so we rounded up to be 29 items per month. Okay, now let's assume the lost sale situation. So here the customers will purchase somewhere else if we don't have inventory. So here the CO, the overage cost, will be the same as before, but for CU we will have lost profit as well, besides the loss of goodwill cost. So it will be 0.5 at the loss of goodwill cost plus the lost profit. So CU here becomes 2.1 dollars. Okay, so the critical ratio here, CU over CU plus CO, becomes this number. And so if we consider this as alpha and go to standard normal distribution table, the Z alpha becomes 2.36. So by having this, the QSR becomes 32. So as you see here, we are ordering more thesauruses than the back ordered case. In the back order, our optimal order quantity was 29, but here is 32. So in the lost sale situation, we order more than the back ordered. So let's say how, I mean, why this is happening. Okay, so the reason here, in the last sale, case, the CU is greater than the CU in back ordered case, right? So because of that, here actually we have higher penalty for a stock out situation than the back ordered, right? So because of this higher penalty, we would like to minimize the risk of running out of stock situation. So because of that, we will order more in lost sales than the back order case. Okay. So to wrap up the multiple planning periods news vendor model, let's see what are the limitations of this model. The first one is no fixed cost of ordering. And the second one is ordering Q star units in every period. So in the reality, we will have some fixed costs, right? And also it may not be optimal to order every period, right? So because of these situations, so we have limitations, and maybe this model is not a good model to apply in the real world. Okay, so in that case, we need different approaches for formulation and modeling of the inventory model, and we will see those new approaches in the next section next week. Okay, thank you.